My name is Kevin Winters, and I want to share an experience with you. Many years ago, God started me on an interesting journey of learning to hear His voice. And it started when a young evangelist came to our evangelical church and introduced us to things we had never seen before as he began operating in the gifts of the Spirit. But the gifts of the Spirit were while that was very intriguing, it was not the best part of the night for me. The best part of the night for me came when he said he wanted to come back and minister there again, but was never able to come back because his schedule was so full that he was just never able to come back to a place twice. But it was what happened after he said that got my attention, because all of a sudden, in the middle of his sentence, he stops and he looks up and he begins to have this conversation with what looked like himself. And so I turned to somebody who was sitting next to me and said, who in the world is he talking to? Because this was not your standard prayer. He was not talking and not hearing anything, but he was dialoguing back and forth with somebody we couldn't see. So he was literally saying, okay, yeah, God. And then he said, God said. That day forever changed my life. I sought that experience with every fiber of my being. And from that, God birthed out of me 2 books. Now, some of you know of my books. You can hear the voice of God clearly. And I have another book called God, Is That You, Me, or the Devil? Both of these books were birthed out of that experience many years ago. That was 1995 or 96. But in that time of my life, God lit a fire in me. And then he began teaching me himself about how to hear his voice. So I want to invite you to get either one of these books. You can hear the voice of God clearly. It's for those, I wrote it for those who had some level of experience with hearing the voice of God, and they didn't know why sometimes it was unclear. So this book is written to help people who hear gain clarity. But it has also been a very big blessing to people who've never heard God's voice, which was a surprise for me because I didn't write that book for this purpose. But nonetheless, people began to hear God's voice and they began to hear him clearly. And this book outlines 4 things that keep you from being able to hear God clearly, and what prohibits you or limits you to a voice that you can barely hear, except, in the wee hours of the morning. So I invite you you can hear the voice of God clearly. And then there is God, Is That You, Me, or the Devil? After I had my experience with the evangelist, I ran into other people because I didn't have people at my church who understood what I was experiencing at the time. So God raised up for me charismatic people. And that's how I met people in the charismatic and Word of Faith and Pentecostal denominations. I hadn't met any of those in all my years of salvation. And so they began introducing me to other aspects of the gifts of the Spirit. But then one of the guys became a mentor to me. But he became a little envious when I began to hear God's voice clearly, and because of the things that God was saying to me. And he challenged me in a way that brought doubt into my life. And from that day forward, I asked this question every time God said something to me. God, is that you, me, or the devil? It was a tormenting question that tormented me for years. And every time I asked God the question, God would teach me a principle to help me become more familiar with his voice and better acquainted with his voice. But after a season of his answer, it would come back again. This overwhelming feeling of doubt and uncertainty in the things that God was telling me to do. And so he would answer. Every time I asked a question, he would give me another principle. So as you can see, he's given me quite a few principles. And it was a years-long battle with this spirit of doubt. and an unbelieving heart. And so this book is birthed out of the question I know many of you have when it comes to hearing God's voice. God, is that you, me, or the devil? So I wrote these books with the intent that to help you hear clearly and to help you hear with confidence. And I invite you to go to Amazon, read the reviews. The reviews will tell you that people are hearing God's voice, people are experiencing God's voice, and they'll also give you insight into the fact that I left no stone unturned. I've written about a lot of stuff in either of these books. I try to cover every question. And so I invite you to get the book. If you already have the book, I want to invite you to write a review, because it is your review that helps my book come to the top of Amazon where it can be seen, because I'm not trying to sell the book. I'm trying to get the message out. And I ask that you would help me get the message out by sharing it with your pastors, your leaders, your friends, your family. I'm not asking you to buy them the book, but show them the book that you have. Tell them your experience. Tell them how it has helped you. And let's help get God's message out, that you can hear him clearly and you can know with confidence that it is him speaking to you.